Speaking of receivers, and Kansas City bound, Chris Godwin. We've been trying to talk about Chris Godwin for the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. But as you guys know, Chris Godwin is a free agent as of today. Franchise tagging is now over. They're looking at the get a long-term deal done, but Chris Godwin is officially a free agent. Do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bring him back? Should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bring him back, or does Chris Godwin play somewhere else? Guys, for a very, very long time, I thought Chris Godwin was the glue that held the Tampa Bay Buccaneers together. For a very, very long time, I thought Chris Godwin was the reason that Mike Evans was having those 1,000-yard seasons year after year after year. I thought Chris Godwin was that X factor, that Y factor, that Z factor for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I really thought he was. But last year, he did only play 7 games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before dislocating his ankle in a very needlessly play at the end of those games. In those 7 games, he did have 50 catches for 576 yards and 5 touchdowns. 5 of those 7 games, he was the leading receiver on the field. However, the week that he was hurt, the Bucs were starting to go more to Chris Otton. More and more and more. Chris Otton, that tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, started to really rear his head and become a top 5 tight end in the NFL. In his absence, meaning Chris Godwin, Jerry Maclin started to step up as well as Otton. Some will say that Mike Evans' production went down when Chris Godwin went down. But guess what? Mike Evans was still the team leading receiver in 7 of those 10 games that he missed. He still got his 1,000 yards. Guys, when Chris Godwin went down this season, it showed that, yes, Chris Godwin is a good receiver. He is a good number 2, number 3 receiver. He's not a number 1 receiver in the NFL. It is what it is. Not everybody can be a number 1 receiver in the NFL. But with that being said, when Chris Godwin went down, Mike Evans still got his bread. Otton stepped up. Maclin stepped up. There were other players on that team that stepped up. And yes, the Buccaneers did skip a little bit, right? I believe they were at one point, they're on a 3-game losing streak. It happens. But guys, Chris Godwin and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should go their separate ways. Chris Godwin should go to a team that's going to appreciate him a little bit more. I'm not saying that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not appreciate him, but I think both teams can elevate their play if they would go their separate directions, go their separate ways. It's not you, it's me, right? That type of thing. So guys, where do you think Chris Godwin will play in 2025? I do not think it will be with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do think it will be with a team in the AFC. I do think it will be a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, a team like the Chargers or the Broncos. There are some wide receiver needy teams out there in the AFC, and I think he goes to the AFC side of things. So guys, in 2025, who does Chris Godwin play for? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers or other? Let us know in the comments below. John says Chris Godwin is going to the Cowboys. We like Davante Adams going to the Cowboys as well, but Chris Godwin, guys, this is, I feel like Chris Godwin's a very unsung hero. Like I said, I really like Chris. I like him as a player. I like him as a person. He just go out there and he does his work, right? And he's only 29 years old. Davante Adams is not 29 years old. So yes, Chris Godwin to the Dallas Cowboys, teaming up with him like with CeeDee Lamb, is much like Mike Evans with a top 5 quarterback in Dak Prescott's a lot like Baker Mayfield and Tom Brady, right? It makes sense. It makes sense. Now, this one, the Baltimore Ravens. Every year that the Baltimore Ravens get knocked out of the playoffs early, or which is every year, they always say they need receiver help, they need this help, they need that help. Guys, this is the first time in a long time that I don't think I've heard many Baltimore Ravens fans saying that, hey, we need a receiver. They got Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, Zay Flowers still right, Mark Andrews, and like Isaiah and Isaiah Likely, that nice two-headed monster. I'm not for sure if they want to waste money on another receiver like Chris Godwin because they need some defensive help. So, as on paper, it kind of makes sense. I don't think the pocketbook, it makes sense, right? RPG Production says, I hope the Pats get Chris Godwin just because he's slightly younger than Devontae and in my opinion, still very, very productive. Listen, I have been, honestly, RPG, thank you for your comment, of course. I've been forgetting that the Patriots have the most salary cap space in the NFL. And they have the worst receiving core in the NFL. So honestly, Chris Godwin and Devontae Adams and Turpin all could go to New England and do a whole brand new receiving core and get everybody else out. Kendrick Boyer out, Kayshawn Buddy or Booty or whatever out, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, all y'all. See you later. Right? RPG, like, I forget that the Patriots were that freaking bad last season. Their receiving core sucked. Can I say that any more politely? They were terrible. So really, any receiver to New England is an upgrade. Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, like obviously Brandon Cooks, Turpin, hell, Stephon Diggs. It's anybody in New England is better. Is a step up, right? Old Man River says Pittsburgh Steelers is a good fit for Chris Godwin. And I don't think so. I don't think so because of the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation. Right? The quarterback situation in Pittsburgh is very, very hairy. It's very, very unquestionable. It's very like, I don't know what to think, right? Is it Fields? Is it Rodgers? Is it Russ? Is it somebody else, right? They are a run-heavy team. Chris Godwin excels when he's able to get 10, 12, 14 targets in a game. And he's not going to get that in Pittsburgh. George Pickens will get the bulk of those catches, bulk of those targets, the bulk of everything. Because if you don't feed Chris Godwin, he's going to bitch, moan, and complain like he always does. Let's just call a spade a spade. So I don't think Chris Godwin to Pittsburgh makes sense. John says Godwin with May would be a good fit. John, as you are correct, I think anybody in Pittsburgh and New